2% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't lived the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and damn, they sent me where the life is be. The level 4 with depth and fights, the type of shit they like to see. True choices fight or flee, I refuse to die a chump. I never been a bitch, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get punked, some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5. Year-long racial fights when homie, all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole, causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, bulldogs and skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF and Gumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. The Northerners was loony, quick to ride up on their rivals. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in their Bibles. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damoos, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IEs, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pie Rules, the Hustlers quick to roll, the Gangsta Crips move. Whatever clique you choose, you better stick to the...
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Man, let's hop right up into this video, right? So before we get started with this video, I would like to say that I'm not doing an actual interview of Dubs and Hector, who has a channel known as That Prison Guard. I have basically downloaded the interview and just dropped it into onto my page, so it looks like possibly that I'm interviewing him, but no, this is a separate interview that they're doing, and this is just another way of reacting. I just thought that it was best that I say that first, right? So I'm not able to question them during this interview. So what this video was about is, a couple of days ago, you had Hector, who was a former prison guard. Then he made it all the way to the lieutenant. At some point, he said on a video that all Paisas are child molesters. Now, I originally seen that video on another video by a YouTuber. My bad last time for not shouting him out. His name is, he has a page called Breaking the Cycle with Slugs, right? And so I did search and try to find that video so I could play more of it at length, as I stated in my last video, but I was unable to find it. So I just played the portion that I had, right? So he claimed, well, so actually it got around, I guess, and at some point in time, Dubs became aware of it. And so Dubs interviewed him in the hopes of giving him a chance to clarify what he said. Right now, I want people to know this, right? A lot of times people will assume that if you have a difference of opinion of an individual, you are against that person. And I don't have nothing personal against Dubs. I don't have anything personal against Hector. I've actually interviewed Hector on my channel. In the course of this interview, I also felt that I didn't feel Dubs was being neutral. I felt that Dubs was a partisan. I don't see nowhere in this interview where Dubs played devil's advocate or even held him to accountability of the quote unquote joke that he made, right? We all know that that's nothing to joke about, right? Dubs knows that's nothing to joke about. Even Hector, in the 16 years that he served as a guard and a lieutenant, know that's nothing to joke about, right? I do a lot of joking on my channel and stuff, but I would never joke about anything that can get a person killed in prison. And I don't think that, I just felt that during the interview, Dubs never held, not once, never held his feet to the fire on any of that stuff, But anyway, somehow in the course of that video, because initially I wasn't even going to react to it, right? Initially, when I seen the video, first thing that popped in my mind was, this is a video for Hector to clarify what he said, right? At some point, the video goes south, and blacks who don't check paperwork or whatever suddenly becomes the topic of the video. And even Slugs, who done the original video, he said as much in a video later on. And I'll maybe insert a portion of that now, about what he said. Like somehow the video got turned toward the blacks.
I only like the interview because it just gave it a small portion about the issue, and it made it more about the Africanos you know, not checking paperwork, and Southsiders checking paperwork, but Southsiders who had bad paperwork on the mainland, right? It doesn't have nothing to do with the topic. But I do understand it's an interview; it could go either way. You know, so that's why sometimes you have to, as an interviewer, you have to carry maybe the interview to a certain thing. But I don't know. I'm just new to this.
And like I said, man, so let's get into the video. I've done enough talking. Let's get into the video. This is not going to be the entire video, but I'll leave a link so if you guys want to see the entire video, but let's get into it.
The way YouTube is going right now, the way it's been, I think had you even prefaced that joke with that statement, they still would have clipped it.
Another question that gets brought up is,
and just real quick, briefly, once again, you know, right there, Dub's done. He done a lot of time in prison. I can assure you, if Hector had made that joke about the faction that Dubs ran in, he wouldn't have been so nonchalant and calm about it, because once again, that's nothing to joke about. You know, even to this day, man, I don't call people snitches. It's certain tags and stuff I'm not gonna put on a person. So, you know, it's certain things that I don't joke about, you know, especially over the internet. But you know, it's let's hop into it.
Hey, do those type of individuals, right, the ones that mess with kids, do they have a stereotype? Do they have a characteristic? And I mean, to be real, if you ask anybody, I mean, they're older white guys and there's paisas. In reality, on an SNY yard, you look, you see them right there. And now, is it all of them? No, that will be a blanket statement. Is there, you know what I mean? Is there wobblers? Of course, there's wobblers and everything, but I'm just saying the older white creepy guys and some paisas that you know you check and you look like, damn, L&L. I mean, that's just from my experience in 16 years, dude, working down south. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and if we're gonna keep it 100% real, you know, without saying which groups or which factions with which ethnicities, it's common knowledge that there are certain groups where even on the GP, those people are on the yard, rapists and chomos. Their group doesn't deal with them.
Now, in my opinion, right there, that's where the video goes south, right? To my understanding of everything that Dub said, this video was to have Hector clarify his position on whatever he said. You know, it was to clarify his position, and I just feel like it should have been about that. It should have been about whatever he said. But now Dubs is talking about, you know, certain groups that don't, you know, check the paperwork. And he's saying, hey, I don't want to say names. We're not mentioning names. So, okay. But we all know who he's talking about, right? He's specifically talking about the blacks, even though he says he doesn't want to mention names. But, you know, let's keep going.
So, but yeah, when you said you were, so I'm just glad to hear, because again, I didn't see it, and I'm not going to justify it for any man. That's why I wanted him to come on here, and that's why go ahead.
I'm gonna stir the pot here when I shouldn't, but I mean, I feel like we have to in a way. You're right. On GPRs, there are certain groups that do not check paperwork, and I see the banter going back and forth, right? And everybody did their time different in every places, but I can honestly tell you from my experience, true story. I'm gonna say it's the truth, man, because I'm not gonna hold back. I'm not gonna pull back any punches. I shouldn't even say where. There's a GP yard, GP. There was a black dude with definitely an R on his jacket, definitely, and his 115 history. The dude was getting caught with other men, and the SEALs are writing him up. I didn't even know they used to write dudes up like this back in the day for doing what they were doing. And I'm like, what the hell? So yeah, that's the truth. And now, I don't know how it gets down in high desert. I don't know how it gets down in
and so for me, because this is a trip, because I'm speaking from the blue side, he's speaking from the green side, meaning convict and guard side. And what I want to make sure that when he makes that statement, I want to put my 2 cents in. So with the blacks, they're very fractured.
Now, 2 or 3 minutes ago, Dubs didn't want to mention names. He didn't want to mention specific groups, but now suddenly it's the blacks. So, I mean, he mentions it. You may have some people who say, well, you know, well, Hector is the one who actually said the blacks, which is true. But still in all, if his code of conduct is to not mention the blacks or whatever, or other organizations or whatever, regardless of what another individual does. He's still going to stand on his morals, his foundation, whatever he believes in. But the second, Hector throws him a bone, he he hops on it and starts to bring up the blacks just in a situation where I honestly feel that this was unnecessary. I mean, discuss what you guys are going to discuss and get that out the way. How did the blacks come into it? But let's go.
So if that dude was a Crip, the Bloods wouldn't have any say so on his status, neither would the Kumis, as well as other Crip factions, or if he was a Blood, because I don't want to just have it, why he's got to be a Crip. Any black group he was a part of, it would be that group's responsibility. So, but I mean, I hear what you're saying.
He was the OG. He was the OG, man. One of those numbers in the beginning, you know what I mean? One of those first letters. But dude had been around. Big too, dude, swole. And that dude was respectful to me. Once I read that file, though, I was like, every time he would say what's up to me, I could be kind of like a little weary. You know what I mean? But I mean, it is what it is. I wasn't there to judge. It's like whatever. But on the flip side of that, if we're gonna keep it 100% honest, Sentinel State Prison, 2009, 2010, when it flipped, the yard flipped from level 3 to level 4, Charlie Yard. There was a Southerner, level 4, that had bad charges. And when we brought him into the sergeant's office, I was a brand new CO. When we brought him into the sergeant's office, we said, "Are you going to be okay to stay here?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to be okay to stay here." And the dude stayed there.
Wow.
I remember his last name too. I don't remember exactly what those charges were, because back then was the C files. So there was no way I was going to walk up to records to go look at the C files. It got a lot easier when you got that on the computer.
I mean, I don't know who the person is, but I will say this: I personally saw an individual. He was a Southerner, and he had something on his jacket. However, it was cleared because what had happened was him and his homies pulled a train on a chick that was from a rival neighborhood.
Yeah, and
she looked at it as gangbanging, and she actually said they raped her. But her own homeboys spoke up for the dudes. And in the joint, they got a pass. So it has, I don't know if it's that dude. I don't know. But for a Southerner, it's extremely rare. But every faction, dudes they'll try their luck.
You're right.
And so what I'm trying to say here is basically, like I said, man, I just felt that the conversation should have been about what Hector said. Now, Hector talks about there happened to be a Southerner on the yard with bad charges or whatever. And you see Dubs, wow, he looks incredulous, and then he quickly, even though he didn't know the dude, he wasn't there, he tries to possibly explain away or give an explanation to why he may have been allowed to stay on the yard, right? And my thing is this, like, when I come on here, I don't try to make anybody look bad, or I don't try to put smut on anybody's name. There is no corporation, there is no organization, there is no group that is not without fault. There's never a system that's 100% foolproof. Things are going to happen, right? I'll be the first one to admit it's not mandatory for all blacks who are from a certain region of California to have their paperwork checked, because all blacks don't fall under one umbrella. Now, it's true, you have many, many different cars when it comes to the blacks. Way too many to name. I'll name a few. You have the Hooster car. You have the Gangster car. You got the Hoovers. You got the IEs. You got BGFs. You got the Kumi. You got the Northern Crip car. And then sometimes within those cars, there are cars within cars, like the IE car. Now, from the outside looking in, you have other dudes saying, man, those are the IEs, or whatever. But they don't know, man, the IE car is a car made up of 2 different counties: San Bernardino County, which has 68 cities, and Riverside, which has 90 cities. So at any given time, a person from either one of those cities could be functioning within this collective, right? And so while we all appear to be one car, and there are still cars within that collective, because like I said, you may have a dude from one of those 90 cities and he may have 4 of his homies on the yard. Now, of course, you have dudes from those other cities functioning within the collective who don't personally know if you have a dude pull up by the name of J-Bo. But now the other 3 dudes, they already know from being from that city, J-Bo has bad charges, and they will hop on J-Bo's head. And one thing I think that is very important for Dubs to mention, which he did not mention, is also within the blacks, you have non-affiliates. And so you may have a person who is a non-affiliate from whatever, who hits the yard. He has bad charges. Now, for one, he has bad charges, and he knows that. For 2, he's not a gangbanger. You have non-affiliates who are not gangbangers, who don't have bad charges, who don't want to be in the cell with gangbangers because they don't want to be affiliated or caught up in whatever that gang member may have going on. Some stuff may jump off and be brought to that cell what the non-affiliate doesn't want to even participate in. So of course, that non-affiliate is going to go find somebody else that he feels more comfortable with, maybe another non-affiliate, maybe another Christian, and his paperwork is not necessarily going to be checked, right? I'm from the Inland Empire, so I'm not going to go ask another dude to let me see your paperwork, man. And to keep it 100 with y'all, I have never demanded to see another dude's paperwork. But as I mentioned before in some of my stories, so when I go into the cell with a dude, I'll say, hey, man, look, here's my paperwork so you can know what I'm in here for and you can see who you're around. Then a lot of times the dude will feel compelled to show me his paperwork as well, especially a gang member, because let's keep it 100, right? Gang members, they want their points and they want their kudos for being violent, for doing this, for doing that. So of course, if a dude is in here for a shooting, then he's going to say, hey, man, look, here's my paperwork, right? So it's not a hard quote unquote check. I'm not checking, a dude, hey, man, give me your paperwork. Let me see your paperwork. I have honestly never demanded to see a dude's paperwork, right? But still in all, when I slide him my paperwork and show him what I'm in here for, he'll slide me his. So it is still a verification of knowing that this dude is around. And I'll reiterate it once again. Is there a mandatory system put in place by the blacks like other organizations have that all paperwork is mandatory to get checked? No. But for anybody to sit around and think that the blacks are cool with rapists and chomos walking the yard and we just all agree with that, that's ridiculous, right? I believe the appropriate statement that should have been made is not all blacks check paperwork, right? Because like I said, once again, you guys know me, I don't do names, right? 2 or 3 years ago, I'm in the hood. I'm sitting at the house. There's a few of us older homies hanging around. We get a call from a homie who's locked up. The homie goes on to tell us how he's ran across a homie from our hood by the name of Little Buff. Now, it is known from the homies from our hood that Little Buff has bad paperwork. So he goes on to say how they immediately hopped on Little Buff's head, busted him up, did what they did, and sent Buff on his way. The homie Little Buff, not to be confused with Big Buff, right? So for anybody who has never functioned as a black or with the blacks, for him to then come on YouTube and make a statement on what all blacks do is extremely erroneous and it's not correct, right? I don't care how much time you did. I don't care if you're a prison guard. I don't care whoever you were, because you're not in every cell, in every single situation, in every time. So at this time, I'm probably going to insert a video clip into which Dub says as much. He's basically saying that if you've never programmed with a particular car, you don't know what they do.
I can't say that I know how the Bloods get down, even in California. I know some of the things they do, but I can't say I know their politics, whether it's the 3-letter organization or the 2-letter one. And I've interacted with them. I interacted with them for decades. I can't say I know the ins and outs of the Northerners in California. Again, decades in the system. Whites, decades. I don't know. I know some of the things they do.
I don't know how anybody out there can expect for anybody, black, white, Mexican, Asian, or whatever, to sit back and hear somebody say something about them that's not true, tries to shed a negative light on them, and not expect them to come forward and speak their truth, and then want to steal the people who disagree, want to still try to point fingers and say, oh, the blacks are crying and blah, blah, blah. I did a video one time, and I'm asking you guys to please watch this video. I'm going to leave a link to the video. The name of that video is The Sureños Have the Blacks in Fear. And so what I was doing was being sarcastic, and the video was about dispelling a lot of the rumors and the narratives that are put out there about blacks by people who are non-blacks. And it was only portions of the video that I wanted to play because the guy in the video says a lot of things that I did not want to get into, right? But he goes on to speak that how the Southerners in Ironwood was not checking paperwork, right? So now you have a guy who functioned as a Southerner, and he was saying that not only the yard that he was on was not checking paperwork, several yards down in Ironwood, I believe he said none of the yards was checking paperwork at the time that he was down there. And so once again, it's not to make anybody look negative. It's to say that regardless of the system that's put in place, nobody follows the rules 100% of the time, man. When I was in Ironwood, I was selling weed. I done business with several Southerners. And like I said, this was 2002. I was on B Yard. I done business with several Southerners. You know, basically, I would give them the weed. They would say, hey, man, I'm going to go to the store. I'll give you a store list. Let me know what you want. Then at times they come back once they got the stuff. I'd see them somewhere. They say, hey, chill, you already know, man, my people be tripping or whatever. So I'll get you the bag. I'll have somebody drop it off in front of your door or whatever. I'll leave it right here. Come pick it up. You know, stuff like that. So my thing is just to say that, once again, people are going to do what people are going to do. If everybody followed the rules, nobody would be in prison. We're not supposed to kill people. We're not supposed to sell drugs. We're not supposed to do any of the things that people do that land them in prison. So once again, I just feel that for people who try to paint all blacks with the same broad brush, but you have never functioned as a black, is extremely wrong. Definitely go watch that video. Sureños have blacks in fear. You will see that I have a couple of different black dudes, one who was in prison at that time, talking about blacks check paperwork, bring your paperwork to the yard. He was on a level 4, and he mentions during the course of the video that he was making on a cell phone while being in prison on a level 4 that blacks do check paperwork, and it is important to have your paperwork. I cannot and I will not sit here and tell you that I know what every other black car in every other prison that I was in was doing. That's just not the case. Anyway, once again, you already know who it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.